because we need kind of the radio side to be going too. All right, the gorgeous Pinzer Flactum, $5,900, double Tim. What's going on? The gorgeous and talented Kira. How are you? Nice to have you all here. And who else is here? Ooh, let's see here. The lovely Avi M has returned. Sweet Murray F has returned. And who else has returned? It's Enzo. Michael Gutierrez, good to see you. Lovely Donna Spencer, thanks for coming on in. Papa Willie the Bodyguard, good to have you here. Dog Next Door, welcome back. And Science Bob is in the room. Glenn John McEnroe, the pride of Wimbledon. Digger Dog, Rono the Michael Leger, everyone. The Michael Leger. Hey, Gorgeous Dirt Road, how you doing? Phil Minervino, nice to see you here. And who else? Can we get him on in? Oh, Doug Shelby's here. The Doug Shelby. Yep. Smoke him if you got him, he always says. There's Science Bob. Thank you, Science Bob, for a wonderful super chat. Oh, we always love you around here, Bob. You know that. All right. Who else is here? We're running out of time. Nicola, welcome back, and thank you for the super chat as well. Lovely Jessica McCreary, always a pleasure to have you here. We're running out of time. Can we do it? Gorgeous Pam McSee, Gong Show, Boss Monster, how are you all doing? And we're done. Horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. A fantastic Science Bob and friends for you tonight, as Bob McGwier will be here geeking out on UAP technology with Brandon Safford of the SCU. Hour 3 sees us head into the swamp with another great story from Swamp Dweller. Fedora John brings in the UFO report. Shirky Poo's got the news, and we'll try and squeeze in the thought of the Dave. Yes, it's that time of the month once again where we bring in our resident Spaced Out radio scientist, Dr. Bob McGwier, to discuss the scientific side of the supernatural, paranormal, and ufological. Each month, Science Bob brings in a special guest with a scientific or research background to talk about all the practical and scientific sides to the high strangeness that surrounds us. Joining us tonight from the SCU is Brandon Safford. He is a civilian scientist, fourth-generation mad scientist, and the coordinator of the Night Watch Institute, of which he is the only public-facing member and owner. He opened it in December of 2021 after about 2 to 3 months of research following the release of the Pentagon report on UAP. At that point, he had been working as a business broker and a data scientist before that, and as well as an IT contractor. This man's been there, done it all, but we're going to have a good time tonight. Science Bob, Brandon Safford, welcome to Spaced Out Radio, gentlemen. Science Bob, good to have you back. Where the heck are you in this world wearing those fantastic overalls tonight?
I am in Ocala, Florida. Tomorrow we're in Orlando because I am attending a conference and giving multiple talks.
Very nice. What kind of conference are you speaking at?
It's an amateur radio conference, and this is the national conference for the American Radio Relay League this year.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Good to have you. And Brandon Safford.
Hey, I'm in Florida, dude, while other people are having winter.
Like who? Is that a shot at us Canadians? Is that what that is?
It is. Yes.
Boy, it'd be real.
The Great White North.
It would be really, really hard to, Not take that personally. I'm just saying, but
It'll only be 70 Fahrenheit tomorrow.
Must be nice. Well, let's do the old weather test here. What's the temperature at SOR HQ? Well, right now we are a balmy 4 degrees Celsius, 39 Fahrenheit. Balmy.
Nice.
Balmy.
That's sure sleep weather.
Yeah, and the warm temperatures. You know what? It's weird because normally at this time of year we're at minus 38 Celsius, minus 40 Celsius. And we hit our real cold spurt back in December and early January. So we may not get it. Might actually have an early spring this year. Screw the groundhog. British Columbia is warming up, thank goodness. That means more Bigfoot hunting. More Bigfoot hunting.
Yes. So anybody that's on Facebook, go to my page for Science Bob Facebook page, and you can see the wolf I unleashed on Phil.
Don't blame you. Brandon Safford, let's learn a little bit about you, my friend, and I want to say thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio. You're a new member of the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, otherwise known as the SCU. I mean, what's it like being a part of that group where here you are, here we have scientists, whether it's, Avi Loeb, whether it's Gary Nolan, or many other giant names in the UFO community. I mean that's a UFO geek's dream, that team right there, man. And I'm saying that as I'm jealous and I'm not a part of it like you two are.
It's humbling, to say the least, especially for someone like me. I'm almost entirely self-taught. I have an Associates of Science from the local junior college, and I've earned some certifications like Six Sigma Black Belt, but I'm not on Dr. Loeb's level at all. Much less. Most of the people out there in terms of academic credentials. It's just I never stopped loving science, and every spare minute that I wasn't trying to earn a buck, I was learning about science. If I was mowing the yard, if I was doing dishes, I would be listening to a podcast or reading and listening to an audiobook about it. And so when suddenly the Pentagon's announcement on UAP came to my attention, that this was an entirely verboten branch of physics and science that we just weren't allowed to even look at previously, and now all of a sudden we had permission to look at it. The best way I could use to describe it is, imagine if you're a really, really Catholic family, right? Like several generations Catholic, that what the Vatican says is more or less how your family is going to run. All right. Well, that's kind of how my family's been with the Pentagon or any sort of government service in general. It's what they have paid for generations of my family to be able to eat and put a roof over their head. So if they say don't study this, don't talk about this, don't look at this, we just didn't. It didn't enter our head to question it. The assumption was, always that someone else was taking care of it. So when suddenly we see, hey, there's suddenly the UFO phenomenon. Yeah, actually, it's real. Yeah, actually, we just kind of we had to tell you it was fake for a while because we didn't want to worry about airspace. But now we really could use civilian help in getting it and stuff. And I thought, wow, this is really. And I didn't even believe it at first. I kept looking into it. I kept looking into it, and finally I was like, you know what? All right, I guess it's real. It's getting okay. Fine, I'll look into it. And so I dropped the business world. I went full time into science, and then just started funding the institute on my own through teaching classes at the public education level until such time as research funding or grants or otherwise come through.
Science Bob.
Oh, that's great. Well, Brandon, tell us where you're from and what got you the place where you're so interested when that announcement was made. And I'm going to tell you how similar our stories are in a minute, how you made this jump. What was your past? Where did you grow up? And how did you door of SCU?
Sure, yeah. Growing up, actually, I kind of split my time between my parents' house and my grandparents' house. My granddad, he was basically civilian scientist also, but GS working levels, and he had anywhere there was a neat event that happened, he worked there. Operation Paperclip, he got to fire off some of the last of the V-2 missiles, stuff like that. When he wasn't working in labs like Los Alamos or, Groom or places like that, he was in his garage designing and developing stuff. Or he was up in his workshop writing at the very desk that I'm sitting at right now. I inherited from him. Designing stuff, just anything. He never stopped designing and building stuff. So I grew up in a workshop of a guy who developed everything from missiles to robotics to lasers to fiber optics to drones before they even called them remote control planes. A lot of his stuff is still classified. When he died, 30 generals showed up to his funeral. I mean, that was the kind of crazy mad genius that I, grew up around. And then my dad, went into the software, and he went to Rice. He developed the first back when the machines were on tapes and they had the big old tape reels. They had two main standard sizes, and the two sizes couldn't talk to each other. So Dad got irritated by that because he needed research and tests and programs to try and transfer from one to the other. So he just developed the hardware and software to get them to talk to each other, and that was his start to it. And then he developed a CAD system that was kind of the main competitor to AutoCAD, and he'd take me with him into the office sometimes, and he'd have the networks back then, back in the old days, the networks, but we had these giant dip switches that were a foot or two big boxes, and these little bitty tiny switches in it that you had to set with the head of a needle or a pen or something, or if you were a kid and had teeny tiny fingers and you could fit under the elevated air-conditioned floorboards, he'd just give me a flashlight and a diagram and a letter and number and say, go match the buttons to that. And I could go under that, or I could remove paper jams from the punch card reading machines. Later on, I'd be working when he finally got a hold of actual personal computers to start bringing those home. My first computer was one of the Commodore 64s. But prior to that, he had built an IBM clone out of just magazines and parts that he'd found. And Dad was always building crazy stuff. He built almost every piece of furniture and stuff that we had. And later on, he when he sold that business, he went to work for General Dynamics and then later for Lockheed. And I'll leave it at that. But he did some really cool stuff with them. But he was always taking me outside of work. He was always taking me to different events like IEEE. And there I got to meet just the most incredible scientists from all over the world and the States. And I would get introduced to people like Boyd Bushman. And later on, when I was actually getting to chair events there, I'd get to meet people like Nick Cook or Mike Melville, who was the Spaceship One pilot. We've had one of the main programmers from IBM's Deep Thought Network come in to speak at keynote events. I mean, it's just all sorts of amazing. Not every single year was I a chair there, but always getting exposed to this stuff. So I guess as it ties into SCU is just a natural progression for me of taking the sort of thing that I've always done for IEEE and seeing now if I can apply it to to the SCU as well. It's not like I'm an expert in any one particular field, but I've been exposed to an intermediate depth of so many fields that I'm able to connect the dots for people on them, as opposed to
That sounds like you would be called a kind of a taught polymath.
Yeah, that would be about right. Yep.
Yes. So I would call myself a polymath. Like you, I was inside the intelligence community, and I heard and saw lots of stuff going on, and I was going, "What is this about?" So I began reading. Naturally, being in the intelligence community, Richard Dolan's UFOs and the National Security State, Volumes 1 and 2. I began following Richard, joined his website, became involved in his forum, finally led the forum, and then he interviewed, of course, contemporaneously with that, this stuff came out in the New York Times and Politico and elsewhere, and I went, the government is admitting this is real? I mean, all this weird stuff I've been hearing, these pictures I've been seeing, and now they're saying it's real out loud? And, of course, now we've got the Gillibrand in a minute. Okay, so Richard Dolan interviewed Chris Bledsoe. And I wrote Chris that says, I'm this scientist. I see that you've had science at your house before. I'm sorry your scientist friend Hal Povenmire has passed away. I'd like to come visit and see if we can have some fun together. I didn't hear back from him for 3 weeks, and finally he wrote and said, okay, you can come. And I says, well, I'm likely to bring my wife. Is that okay? And he went, fine. So we hit it off with him. And when I got there, I learned all sorts of stuff, had myriad experiences, which I won't bore the audience with because they heard it multiple times. But I've seen all of the things with my own two eyes that Chris claims, except for the lady. And I saw them with my own eyes. I mean, I don't care what people claim about Chris and his videos. I have seen stuff there with my own eyes. All right. He told me that Jim Simivan told him he knew him and to let me in. That's how I got to Chris Bledsoe. And after that experiences, I've had other experiences and so forth. So I decided I would try to do some technical work. And my original goal was to help Chris out because he was taking these shaky handheld phone videos. And I wanted to put some other instrumentalities, other sensors, and do multi-sensor fusion, automated collection where nobody would guess at his place. And so I started doing some stuff. And eventually that led to other activities and so forth. It was just kind of strange. And I've had paranormal experiences, weird things happen ever since I became friends with Chris Bledsoe. So in 2020, I retired from Virginia Tech as the chief scientist of the Hume Center, and I stopped being an active member of classified projects. I took terms off, and in May of 2022, I will graduate. I will no longer have an active clearance. It will go into dormant, and if I were to go back in, there would have to be a total tens of thousands of dollar background investigation. So, in other words, at my age, it'll never happen. So there you go. Dave, you got a question?
Well, I always got questions because I don't have the impressive resume that you guys have. And every time you mention your resume, Bob, I just feel like slinking into my chair a little bit. Honestly, at least I could grow better facial hair than you. That's at least I'm one up there.
Ooh.
I am one up there. But let's start to shift this as we got 5 minutes to go before we got to go to break here on Science Bob and Friends. The UAP subject has been a highly controversial one, Brandon, for the last 4 years. And, there's many in the UFO community that are very divided on this subject, whether it's the scientific side, whether it's the research side, the technological side, or the experiential side, which is where I like to come from, and that's kind of my background along with this, even though I do have my journalism diploma, but nonetheless, I had to throw my education in there. I to compete somehow. But nonetheless, where do you stand on this whole controversy as an outsider who's pretty new looking in to the entire UFO world?
Well, let's see. I did want to clarify one quick thing a moment ago, Dr. Bob. I am not actually a member of the intelligence community, nor have I ever been. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't coming across as misrepresenting something there, because that's. But I have been surrounded by the aerospace industry, as well as a whole lot of very brilliant scientists within it around. So I just wanted to make that real clear. I didn't want to misrepresent anything there. But as far as a newcomer into this, it's fascinating because I've had to learn the transition of thinking that, oh, hey, I actually know the answer to that. I can just call them up and let them know, hey, I know what the answer is. I know what that could be. Or, hey, I know how I could help you with this. And realizing that those channels are mostly closed, that they all closed up after a lot of the not disclosure, but the waves of stuff started happening. And trying to find where those avenues were to even give any answers or questions, for that matter, to anyone. Trying to track that down was incredibly difficult. And it required a rabbit trail just to ever be able to find anyone to talk to in the first place, which was a very far cry from what I was seeing on every TV show and hearing from every podcast and reading it from every article, which was, where are the scientists? Why aren't they looking at this? Why isn't anyone suggesting how we can do something on this? Where's the help? And I'm looking around trying to help, and there's no one actually wanting to talk to it. But I looked, the communities themselves were active, but they were very insular. And I don't mean that as any sort of a disrespect towards the communities or anything, but this has been siloed for so long. I think maybe what it sounds like is it sounds like the artillery stopped and everyone's kind of poking their heads up and looking around and making sure the shooting's not about to start, as far as the sniping of pseudoscience accusations and tinfoil hat and clip art of aliens and things like that. And they're just waiting to see whether or not anyone's really taking this seriously, or if it's just going to go right back to the land of silliness and ruining professional careers. I'm banking on the former rather than the latter. I think it's just going to take a whole bunch of people opening dialogue.
How do we get that dialogue opening up, though, as we got about 1 minute to go? Because so many sides here, and there are multiple sides. It's not two sides. There are multiple sides that have literally dug their heels in.
I think that answer is going to take a lot more than a minute. But in general, if you were to boil it down into one or two sentences, I'd say it's going to take forgiveness of past sins on every side. It's going to take acceptance of new opinions and ideas on every side. And it's going to take a whole lot of humility on the part of humanity, as well as an acceptance that we are actually just minor players on a global stage of intelligence.
No bucks, no Buck Rogers. That's my answer. When the bucks flow for work, then we'll have stuff.
Yep.
That's another way to look at it. Another way to look at it. Gentlemen, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour here. Science Bob and Friends happens the second week of every month, where Dr. Bob McGwier, who we call Science Bob around here, puts on his scientific overalls and tells us the who, what, where, when, why of what is going on, and maybe even dabbles in a little bit of woo. Tonight's special guest is Brandon Safford. He is from the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies, and we're glad to have him here as well from the Night Watch Institute. More UAP talk. Let's get a little geeky here, find out what the hell these things are flying in our sky. We'll be back with more Spaced Out Radio when we return on the mighty SOR. Stay tuned. All right, we're clear. Oh,
Cool.
Okay, so when we come back, let's go into as much detail as you can, Brandon, on what is the Night Watch Institute. What is it? What is it? What's its purpose? Kind of what are the kind of people that are involved and so forth. Get you as much publicity on that as we can.
Can we wave at Sharon as she's going to bed?
I lied.
Can we wave at Sharon while she's going to bed, please? Come on. Let us have a wave.
I lied and messed her
up. Good night, Sharon.
Good night.
We love you.
Yes. I don't know why she puts up with me, but she does. And she agreed.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they're always the better half.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yep.
Mine's already. I think mine fell asleep probably around 9:39. I'm usually already asleep 2 hours ago by now. I'm an old man before his time.
Well, the worst of the pandemic, where I was sitting around doing this, where all my plans had fallen apart because of COVID, I was going to bed early. Now, my telescope is together. My astrophotography cameras are glued on. I have all of that working, and now I usually go to bed just before the sun comes up.
Oh wow! I'm usually waking up right about the time the sun comes up, or actually beforehand in the winter, because it takes longer for it to rise around here. But I'll go out and as soon as it gets dark and all the chores are done, I'll go out and I'll sky gaze for a while, and whether I'm looking at stars or clouds or just meditating or whatnot, and then I'll do it again in the morning. But man, it's just between 3 kids in school and everything else, and honeydew lists and teaching classes in science.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Very nice. Very nice. Bob, you may want to move your camera over a little bit. Can't hear you. You muted yourself.
She's going to bed. She's fine. I tried to get her to turn that light out. It's putting that glow on, but we're giving up.
That darn science Sharon there just causing all sorts of troubles. All right.
Now, she's putting up with me. She's putting up with me, so I'm not calling it trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And those are some nice axes you got on the wall there, Dave. Are you a collector?
Well, the red one and the black one, those are my sons. They're toast already. And this one right here is my daughter's. Mine are in the other room.
Cool. I never had the hands for it.
Me neither. I'm terrible. I am terrible, and I even suck at my lessons, and I'm so frustrated right now. But watching my little guy, who's 8, now starting to learn picking with his fingers is pretty cool.
Oh, like claw hammer or something? Or?
Yeah, just picking.
Cool.
Yeah. My kid's a metalhead. I'll be honest with you. He's an absolute metalhead, and I thank God, because his mother's choice of music is horrible. Horrible.
I have 2 sons, both of them. I have 2 sons, and both of them are multi-instrument people, pianos, guitars, etc. And they started that stuff when they were single digit. And they just grew up, and they can just play anything.
Yeah, that's cool.
They're pretty amazing. It's amazing. If you start them young,
yeah,
they can really go. But they have to be into it. Yeah. You can't force it.
Yep.
My boy has recently started playing the piano by ear. He'll just go sit at the piano and just start playing. And I'm like, go for it. Just go for it. Give me a second here, guys. I want to say a big thank you to Smithy, Linda, Science Bob, Nicola, Candy, Phil, and Sinead for the amazing super chats. It is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Don't forget, Saturday, February 26th, Lynn Wallington will be talking Women in Ufology, a 6-hour panel of women talking UFOs and everything in between, highlighted by former Navy fighter pilot Alex Dietrich, who will be along with us for that panel as well. It's going to be absolutely wonderful, and we appreciate you tuning us in for that. And don't forget, Vegas, April 22nd to 24th, we have the Spaced Out Radio Fan Party in Las Vegas at the Golden Nugget on Fremont Street. Make sure you go to info@spacedoutradio.com. Let us know if you are coming. Here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really do appreciate it. I want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with Science Bob and friends. Dr. Bob McGwier is here, hanging out in a hotel room in Florida, and our special guest from the SCU and Night Watch Institute, Brandon Safford. And gentlemen, we're going to kick this off, Bob, with talking some UFOs and what the hell these things are. I'll let you start the geeking out here, man, because this is where I go into, what? What are they saying? What?
Okay, so Brandon, your Twitter handle is Night Watch Institute, and you founded this entity. Tell us what it is, how it came to be, what it's doing, what are your aspirations, what kind of people are in it.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Like had been mentioned earlier, I'm the only public-facing partner right now. Although we do have silent contributors to it that just prefer not yet to, risk careers and whatnot. But the reason that it initially got founded was out of fear. When the initial narrative that I had seen was, again, keeping in mind a very aerospace-oriented family, the admission by the Pentagon about the existence of the UFOs, I saw as a gross violation of U.S. airspace, an imminent act of preparation for war, and I didn't realize yet that there hadn't been hostilities, or rather, the hostilities that had happened now appear to be more incidental or invoked on part of, the whatever human state aggressor had attacked at the time. But as far as just in general, I hadn't done enough research yet at the time. I hadn't heard yet enough at the time to understand that this didn't appear to be too terribly much of a threat per se, more just a whatever it is, whatever states they were, whatever things they are, or collection of entities they are, letting us know they're out there. But initially, Night Watch started as a civilian effort to monitor the skies for UAP activity in response to the AIO MSG. The OI message, the AIO MSG, I just call it OI message for short, only applies to airborne, unidentified airborne objects within controlled airspace, and that's controlled military airspace. So as far as the volume of the Earth goes, that's a teeny tiny little portion of any part of the Earth at any given point in time. It's like if you had an Olympic-sized stadium and you were only going to monitor a cup holder's worth of information. Now, I don't blame the military for that. That's their job. They're going to monitor that space. They don't have the budget, the serial number, and stuff attached to monitor civilian spaces. If it's not attacking a civilian space and it doesn't appear to be, aggressive, if it, regardless of capability, if it's not demonstrating intent, they don't need to respond to it. So gradually, it went from a defensive civilian monitoring effort to learning and learning and learning and learning everything I could about it, and realizing really what the focus of this should be about is non-human intelligence, at least from my standpoint. Now, whether or not that non-human intelligence is extraterrestrial or artificial intelligent or intelligent agent or a terrestrial intelligence that we're not aware of yet, or some looped civilization or anything like that, the idea of Night Watch Institute at that point became the study of non-prime human intelligence. And so by prime human, I would mean us, presumably all native humans, Earth, this time stream, branch, whatever you want to call it, not necessarily being a looped human or a separated civilization from a prior whatever alien hybrid or whatever. You have prime human, then you would have exohuman. So exohuman would be if, again, this is an assumption, that you had some sort of species of human or humanoid that had at some point left Earth and went to go live on some other terrestrial body or planet. That would be an exohuman. If you had, say, a Mahabharata type situation where prehistoric civilizations are destroying each other, and some of them went below ground, to hide, and eventually they reemerge. And by that point, Homo sapiens has emerged as the dominant surface life, and this is, Homo florensis or Neanderthalis or whatever might have been, back there. If there was some other derivative species or pre-ancestral species of human, that would be a xenohuman at that point. Basically something outside the norm, but still terrestrially. So non-human intelligence, regardless of whether it's plant, animal, vegetable, mineral, alien, or whatever, that seems to be the core of what people are interested in. They're not interested in UFOs if it's just one dot out there in space that doesn't do anything. They're not interested in if it floats by in a predictable pattern. But if it's doing something intelligent, where it's moving through the sky at unpredictable rates, or if it's suddenly shifting, or it's exhibiting intelligent or emergently intelligent behavior, that implies that we have a lot to learn about it. And whether or not that's in the archives of some deep base surrounding a spaceship, or if it's just in a lab that happens to be looking at bacteria that's capable of piloting a printed 3D vehicle, emergent intelligence and non-human intelligence is just fascinating to me. So that's what the Night Watch Institute now is focused around, is non-human intelligence. Part of that effort is focused around UAP, or what I say UPE, which is unidentified phenomena and entities. That covers a lot more ground. It allows for transmedium vehicles like USOs or UOOs or whatnot. So if you have an unidentified phenomena or entity, that could also include things like Steve, which if you're familiar with Steve, it's this weird beam that'll just shoot out of the Arctic every now and then for no apparent reason, and you can catch it on camera. So if you ever look at, I think it's my Twitter, whatever it is I got on the Twitters, the avatar. On there, you can see the little beam coming out. That's Steve. That'd just be a phenomenon. I mean, it's not necessarily a craft. It's not an object. It's an entity. Or if you did the stuff that's going on with Skinwalker Ranch, if you have what looks like a gate opening up in the sky or something like that, that's not necessarily an object or an entity. That would be a phenomena. So it also allows for possible of additional encounters, second kind, third kind, fourth kind, fifth kind. If you encounter a xeno entity or an exo entity or something like that walking across the landscape or flapping towards you through the air or swimming towards you in the water, it allows for that as well. A better classification of it. I guess you could say a marriage of ufology and cryptozoology, if you will, but in a context which science can frame. That, in turn, ends up begging the question of life. We've never really, at least in Western culture, nailed down what the definition of life is. And most of our Western scientific studies have centered around OChem, organic chemistry-based explanations for life, that it has to happen this particular way or that particular way. And like the most radical idea that people are proposing in most cases is something like a silicon-based or a saline type life, when really, if you get down to it, all life requires is a process by which energy and mass convert to a more complex form and then take that function and replicate it indefinitely. And if you can get something to keep replicating itself like that indefinitely, provided it's got the energy and mass to continue doing so, that's proto-life. From there, it's just a natural progression of intelligence. So anywhere in the universe, not just Earth, anywhere in the universe that you have mass being acted upon by energy, you have the potential for a function to develop that transfers that into a more complex state. And if it's a more complex state and it can keep doing that and keep replicating it, those can eventually hit an even more complex state, and so on and so forth. Now, up until recently, it was thought, that would just be completely impossible because mutations in evolution would only happen via random mutations that happen once every few million years. But in fact, the science is now showing that, in point of fact, evolution seems to work from various directions at once. So you don't just have the random mutations that pop up. You've also got a weird semi-Lamarckian effect where, where if you happen to be in an environment where it's always wet all the time, then you're more likely to suddenly develop traits that are going to let you deal with wetness more often, or dryness, or heat, or cold, or so on and so forth. And so taking that to the next logical step, all evolution really requires is that the mass and energy function that was working before get a little bit more complex than the time before it. And if it can learn how to loop in other functions and processes that aren't related to it, it can get much more intelligent, like tool use or fire or, building structures and things. And if it can get to the point where it's not just co-opting natural processes and things around itself, but it can co-opt other life forms into itself, then it's even more advanced. And so forth. So if you take that to its logical conclusion and then consider the volume of the Earth is way more than the surface area, and then think of it like an onion comparatively, if you just want to kind of visualize the whole volume of the Earth as an onion, humanity only lives on the outermost onion skin layer. And even then, only the tattered shreds that happen to be poking, above the ocean. That doesn't include all the layers of onion beneath it, all the way down to the core. It doesn't include the gaseous layers of onion that are existing around it when you cut into it. And all of those places have mass. They have energy that can be acting upon them. And you could have life forming in that kind of environment in the magnetosphere. You could have it forming inside of volcanoes, at the bottom of oceans, and developing very complex systems through things completely unrelated to organic life.
Let's a little bit about one thing. Alex Dietrich is coming on, and I hope the ladies ask Alex to describe the following incident. We're very lucky in many ways that the missions that were going on the Nimitz were training missions, because the minute those fighter pilots had their radar jammed, if they had weapons, they are free to engage, because that's an act of war. We are really lucky they were not carrying warheads. Because I just tell you, people jam you. They don't have good intent. I mean, that's the assumption militaries have to make. If you're jamming me, it's for nefarious purposes. We are very lucky. I hope they ask Alex about that in the program that's coming up, because that is one still instance of something that is not necessarily benign. And then we could go over many others there, but I agree with you that I think most of the people in the Air Force and National Security Council and elsewhere don't really see all of this as necessarily negative or antagonistic or harmful or so forth, but they're existent without understanding their purpose imply a potential national security threat. And all we need is a simple answer. Why are they here and why are they doing this? And we can stop worrying. Dave, you got a question?
Yes. I always have a question. And it's more of a comment type question, because I don't think science can solve that. I know I'm at the minority of this 2/3 of brain power here between Science Bob and Brandon, but let me explain something to you here. I don't believe, and it's my opinion, there might be others who agree with me, that you can solve the alien issue without starting to be more like Gary Nolan and take the experiential side along with it. Because as an experiencer, I really do believe that if we tapped into more of these experiencer brains and actually recorded what they have gone through, from radiation to maybe downloads or whatever it may be, I think there's where the answers are. Trying to get a fighter to intercept a primitive fighter compared to their whatever their craft are, and let's face it, they would be considered primitive, okay, is not going to do it. Sending satellites into space is not going to do it. What it is going to do is waste billions of dollars looking for something that you can't solve up in space when you could solve it potentially here on the planet. Brandon, what are your thoughts?
I agree and disagree 100% on both counts. I no longer think that any of these problems is going to be solved with just one thing or another. And I also no longer think that the phenomena, as it were, is any one source. Much like Lou Alessandro and Mellon and Fugel and Bard and so many others have implied or outright stated, it appears to be a combination of a lot of phenomena, a lot of different actors, and some of them probably human state actors. But if you weed all of those out, you're still left with a lot of stuff that is just so completely inexplicable. And your acceptance of that not you specifically, but people's acceptance of that is going to come down to many different levels. Let's just consider the top 5 possibilities of it, in order of least woo to most woo. Before
you go on that, I agree with you. What I'm saying is, and maybe I misrepresented it, there has to be a combination of it. It's not that it's not like we got to throw out mainstream science and only listen to the woo partners here. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is we have to bridge that gap and realize that there is something happening. We have test subjects, millions of test subjects who just want to know what happened to them, would volunteer, not even get paid for it, volunteer just to learn. And that's what I'm saying.
I agree. Again, 100% with that. And there are other institutions that are testing for that and similar sorts of things as far as the experiencer effect goes. One of the ones that immediately comes to mind that's probably familiar with a lot of your audience is the IONS Institute. I believe one of the other ones is the Rhine Institute. Ronan Institute might be another one that's interested in looking at that. As far as the SCU goes, as far as I know, the last the last read I got on them is that it's going to be more about specifically in the areas of UAP and the craft and whatnot, as opposed to the experiencers themselves. But as far as scientists or clergy or anyone going out there, part of the science itself is experiencing it. So as part of my studies, I've delved into the experiential part of it as well, taking notes and trying to treat it as I would any other experiment.
Science Bob, we got 3 minutes.
Yeah, so scientists are brought up in a certain context, and this context gives them tools, laboratories, places to go to, etc. It's just hard to see how mainstream scientists are going to operate outside of that context. So they've got tools, they got a hammer, they're looking for a nail. And so until we broaden the perspective and again, I say it, until funding is available for them to try things, they need to pay for the lab, they need to pay for their students, they need to pay for their staff, and so forth. When all of that is available, I think we'll have quite a few people do some kind of science around UAP. Now, it looks to me like NDAA is going to lead to lines in the budget whenever an actual budget ever gets passed that will allow funded research, but it'll be from places like DARPA and three-letter agencies and so forth. I think it's going to be a little while they gather. They're doing observational science, and once observational science leads to hypotheses, we might see some grants coming out of the National Science Foundation, Air's Office for Scientific Research, AFOSR, the Navy Research Labs, and so forth, where they're doing fundamental research. Hey, we've got this bunch of phenomenon. Now we got a little money. Let's get some students and go do some work. Because that's what a professor does. He goes and tells his students what work to do for him. While their education paid for and a degree out of it. I mean, look, we have to understand scientists are constrained by how they make a living and the context in which they have to operate. And so that's just a comment on, you're not going to see people get degrees in woo until woo is funded. It's just the way it is.
It very much is the way it is. Gentlemen, we got you for one more hour here on Science Bob and Friends. Dr. Bob McGwier, formerly of Virginia Tech University, retired, and from the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies, as well as, I'm sorry here, all of a sudden I drew a blank here. Night Watch Institute, sorry, I don't know why I all of a sudden blanked on that. We have Brandon Safford, I'm just butchering everything. Can we just get to commercial? Honestly, can we just get to commercial? Spaced Out Radio, Hour 2, Science Bob.
Roll bumper.
Yeah, roll it, man. Just get me out of here. Not enough woo to inject into my system. Science Bob and Friends continues on Spaced Out Radio. I'll learn how to talk during the break. We'll be right back.
Yeah, for what it's worth, all you did was add a T. I've had people add W's, N's, you name it. Oh, we lost Bob.
No, he's still there. He just turned his camera off a little bit so he could go give his wife a smooch.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, all right.
This is fun.
Let's say hello to Mitchell Darling. How are you? Game Vet, good to see you. Latro, Magnus Vermagnuson, Asteroid, good to have you all here. The gorgeous Gloria from Casual Conversation. The lovely Teresa, thank you for joining us. And who else am I missing here that came in late? That's about it. That's about it. Drew Morris, what's happening? All right. Let's see here. What are we talking about in the chat room here? I don't know. What are my rules in the chat room? Usually if Jules is dropping a hammer here, she's got a point. Let me just take a little peek here. Oh, yes. No COVID talk in the chat room, people. You know better than that. You know better. We don't talk that stuff or politics, or unless you're insulting Justin Trudeau, there is absolutely no politics talk here in our channel. All right? You don't want none of this, America. You don't want none of this. Trust me on that. No, the convoy hasn't made... Well, it's kind of starting. I think... I'm going to just...
Reminds me of a joke.
Uh-huh.
From way back in the Cold War, so it's safe. Way back in the Cold War, to a Russian and an American friend are each chatting over the phone, and they're talking about how great their respective countries are. And the American says, in America, I can go right out into my front lawn and I can shout, "To hell with Ronald Reagan, and nothing will happen to me." And the Russian says, silly American, I could go right in the middle of Red Square and shout, "To hell with Ronald Reagan, and nothing would happen to me."
That is awesome.
Yeah, it was okay. It loses something in the telling, I suppose. Probably in 4 decades, too.
I bet there are people in the chat room that might go, "Ronald who?"
Yeah. That just occurred to me.
All right, we've got 3 minutes.
A long time ago.
Ryan Sprague and a couple of the others I've heard raise a really good point on that. There's whole generations now that are 2 generations removed from the Roswell incident, and as far as they're concerned, it's ancient history. It's as ancient history to them as the War of 1812 was to us. So, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, look, I believe that something major happened. And the reason is all of the researchers that, Dave and I and probably have gathered all of this documentary proof coupled with witness statements from people that lived in the area. You don't have semi-trailer trucks with flatbeds and tarps pulling a deflated balloon out of the desert. You just don't.
That's because they're all in Ottawa right now. They're all in Ottawa right now. Yes.
Boom. Those are some good balloons if they flew all the way from New Mexico to Ottawa.
And I love the fact that they claimed Roswell was Mogul when Mogul started 5 years after Roswell.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Gentlemen, we've got about 90 seconds.
All right.
And I just want to say a quick hello to everyone listening in on tonight's show. We really do appreciate it. Thank you to all the veterans. You always have a safe place here in our chat rooms. We love you and thank you for your service. Big thank you to our super chatters tonight. Smithy, Linda, Science Bob, Nicola, Candy, Phil, and Sinead. The super chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show. By the way, the new schedule for Vegas is going up on the website soon, April 22nd to 24th. We were going to spread it out, but we said hell with it. Let's just all gather at the Golden Nugget on Fremont Street. So far, we got 30 fans signed up. I'm excited. We're going to have a live show. We've got the conference room already booked. And, we want you to come. We want you to come.
Big name showing up.
Yeah. Science Bob is going to be there. George,
not a big name, but other really big names are showing up.
That's right. Science Sharon is going to be there, and George Knapp, Jim Goodall, Michael Schratt is going to be there. I'm already fangirling over that. You're probably going to see me cry when I see Michael Schratt. Honestly, I love the man's research so much. But we're going to get that going. And don't forget, February 26th, Women of Ufology on our YouTube channel. Here we go.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter @Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Paboosh. Paboosh is your password. I wonder if it's Pabouche. No, there'd be an R on the end. Paboosh. We're going to call it that. Or as the Americans would say, pabouch. Pabouch. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night, right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter @SpacedOutRadio, Instagram @SpacedOutRadio Show, as well as on TikTok @SpacedOutRadio. Let's get back to Science Bob and friends. We got him for another hour here, where Dr. Bob McGwier comes in once a month to skip the woo, but get into the who, what, where, when, why, and how of everything strange and supernatural. Tonight, we are joined by Night Watch Institute's Brandon Safford. He is coming from us from the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies as well. Gentlemen, welcome back and thank you. And Science Bob, I'll let you take the lead here.
Great. So people that have been on here know that I'm a scientist. They know I have a degree in science. I've done science. I was the chief scientist of an institute. But they've also learned that I've had weird experiences. I've had missing time, orbs in my house, seen craft, been visited in the middle of the night and had things recorded that I didn't know happened. supposedly with Dave, but I don't know. I mean, it's just all weird. The stuff is weird. And so as a scientist, I'm interested in what I can figure out about that. Have you had experiences?
I have indeed. And it's one of those things that I still struggle with trying to share because from the very first time I was caught having the experiences, I was told not to do it. So when the very first ones that I can remember, I would be at my grandparents' house, and there were stars, for lack of a better word. They were golden stars. They weren't like stars in the sky, like little dots, and they looked like cartoon, like if you got a marker and drew in the sky, an image, a messy image of a star, and put it there. And within it were things that waved, and they would motion, they would make sounds. I didn't really know what they were. It didn't occur to me that they shouldn't be there. And they would, I'd laugh at them and I'd talk to them. I was, 4, 5, something like that. And one night, my grandmother came out and she saw me talking to them, and she yelled at them and she yelled at me, and she told me, don't ever talk to them again. And then don't talk about them, don't talk to them, don't look at them. Okay. I did what Grandma told you to do something, you did it, She didn't have to give me a reason. If you asked for a reason, you got more chores, anytime, and then if you kind of couple that, I grew up in a very, very, very strict church. It was, those familiar with the Christian faith and Baptists, you may be familiar with Bereans, which is a very, very strict offshoot of Baptist, to the point where they'd say even kneeling and, watching TV was sinful because it was kneeling in front of an idol. And so any remote thing on woo there, you don't talk about, you don't look at it, you don't mention it. Well, then when, Dad stopped working in the software hardware industry and goes to work for the aerospace industry, and I find that, if you see something strange, you don't mention it, you don't talk about it, because there's a good chance that it was either a black ops project or, you just weren't supposed to, the people who needed to handle it. So, even in my tribe, because I'm a Sac and Fox Native American, and the Sauk tribe, we had the old ways and the lore and whatnot literally brutally killed out of us. A lot of us ended up, not me personally, but a lot of our tribe had to go to the Carlisle Indian School for boys, kill the Indian, save the man thing, which, to be that is its own collection of plus and minuses there. But it's just, like I said, my whole life has been a collection of see no evil, speak no evil, talk, just pretend. The Fnords, if you ever read the Illuminatus trilogy, it's like the Fnords. If you don't see the Fnords, they can't hurt you. So when you suddenly get permission to start looking at that stuff, and you start remembering everything that you've seen and everything that you've done and everything that you've witnessed over the years, and trying to square that with what you've been told about reality in the past versus what you now know reality to be more like, it can get very confusing. It's a combination of, professional credibility as well as personal sanity. At what point do you ask yourself, did I make that up? Am I remembering wrong? I was not supposed to talk about it. So maybe the reason I wasn't supposed to talk about it is because it wasn't actually there, and they just didn't want me to be the neighborhood crazy kid. Who knows? So did I experience stuff? Do I remember experiencing stuff? Yes, off and on my entire life, even as recently as a day ago. Do I talk about it very much? No, hardly at all. In fact,
okay, great. So, what was the name of your tribe again?
Sack and Fox. Yeah,
Sack and Fox. Okay, so you tell us what the center of gravity for the Sack and Fox tribe is, and do they have something akin to the Anasazi lore for sky people in their heritage?
So, let's see. Center of gravity. Okay, so they were front-loading it. They were a Great Lakes tribe. They were probably the first tribe that Lewis and Clark encountered. I believe the favorite quote among the tribe is, if they had known then what they knew now, they'd have just shot the canoes and sunk them then and there. But they were actually two separate tribes living on an island in the Great Lakes. And it was the Sauk tribe. And now I'm blanking on the name. Muskaki. I'm going to catch some flack for that later. But the Sauk is actually the tribe that I was descended from. But when Lewis and Clark were cataloging all of this, they grouped these two tribes together, and the M portion of the tribe or the island got mistaken for another tribe that was Fox, and so they just all got lumped in as one name, Sack and Fox, and then their stuff taken, and then they got sent down into the Stroud, Oklahoma area. So their center of gravity is currently half the tribe is way up further in Montana and that area, and they separated legally from the whole rest of the nation, the tribal nation, a long time ago. But the tribe itself that I'm from is, they're in the Oklahoma territory. As far as mythology goes, the one I'm most familiar with actually reads more like a post-apocalyptic legend than anything else, where so the allegory, and it was interesting in uncovering this, because this was a thing that had kind of gotten lost for a while. So it's kind of nice to be able to bring this up. This was kind of lost in tribal memory. 1 year, when I was thinking of actually competing at the powwows and forming my own regalia, I went to the tribal library to start looking up symbols from the tribe and colors and things like that were traditional. I really wanted to tap into the older roots of the tribe, and I came across this awesome looking symbol, and it was like this. It was a picture of 3 different things, and it was like a medicine pouch and a bag and a quiver or something like that. But the medicine bag had an emblem of a cat with a really long tail that went all the way around it. And so I sketched it down as best I could, and the reference caption on it only said, "The underwater panther," as depicted by the Sack and Fox tribe on this medicine bag or whatever. Now, years and years and years later, I would actually get to see this medicine bag at the Trammell Crow building in Dallas. But up until that point, the only thing we had was that one picture from that one book. And I went from tribal member to tribal member trying to track down the origin story of this. And it just so happened that one of my relatives was old enough to remember the legend. And it actually ended up being one of the origin stories of the tribe. And so metaphorically speaking, or literally, or folklorically, a long time ago, there was a huge cataclysmic flood that went into the Great Lakes area, and it trapped a panther within its cave, and it lived there for a very long time with no availability to food. But the otter saw that the panther was trapped up into the cave and would swim under it and deliver gifts of fish and whatnot to the tribe. To the panther. And eventually, as the floodwaters receded, the panther was able to escape and live, but it would have starved to death otherwise. So otter became sacred to the tribe, as did the underwater panther. And the whole allegorical, metaphorical, or literal, however you want to take it, story of it got represented as the beaver the further south the tribe went, when they weren't really dealing with panthers so much anymore, but they had a beaver that looked like kind of the same thing. It creates its own underwater cave and shares with river otters and stuff. Anyway, I suspect that's how the tribe eventually went from the underwater panthers to becoming the different clan system, one of which was the Beaver clan, of which I'm descended. So it was this neat little full circle thing that I found the symbol from the original proto-clan from which I had been descended all the way back, and it taps into this great flood origin story. It was, so, yeah. As far as aerial things, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I just want to tell Dave, let's warn the audience that we're going to take audience questions and have them line them up and capitalize them so you can easily find them. Yeah, that is really interesting. So nothing so much UFO-like, it's just an interesting mythology surrounding a totem or a critter that was very important to the tribe.
No, it's the UFO stuff.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
Tell us some UFO stuff.
Well, it's so.
I'm sorry, but that you're allowed to tell. Lots of tribes don't like this kind of stuff talked about.
It's not so much of what you're allowed to tell, and well, I mean, for some of the tribes, it is. It's just that the legends aren't necessarily ours. It's kind of a collection of tribal not languages, throughout. So it could very well be, like, some of them are absolutely ridiculous. There's a legend of the flying butt, for instance, that just this butt flies through the air, and it was supposed to be the butt of this very angry woman, and her head would fly one way and the butt would fly the other way. You've got legends like far more majestic, like the Thunderbird, that you could either take it figuratively speaking as like a lightning formation or a fire formation, or if you start looking further north into, say, the Eskimo and Inuit areas in the far north, they actually have literal legends of these huge megafauna birds that would come down at it and get it. Throughout several indigenous cultures, the idea of UFOs being either in relation to being descended from the stars, or just being either a spirit realm, or even just something from a different realm of the earth itself, such as something that actually literally lives within a volcano or literally lives down within a lake. As far as ghosts or entities, cryptozoological things, again, that also is going to vary from tribe to tribe per se, but you've got acceptances of those varying from, if you go real far south into like mestizo lands, like Mexico, Central America, places like that, the idea of there being a natural and a supernatural it's a very hazy boundary there. The boundary between that is as hazy as trying to figure out what is the actual water line and what's the beach line when you're looking at the foam hitting the waves. But you might have other tribes, or within the tribe even, beliefs that such things absolutely could not be. But one of the things that you do find over and over again in almost every indigenous culture wherever I've looked is an earth, air, fire, water, and akasha /spirit celestial component, like a 5 elemental system. And in some cases, they tend to be different. I think in China, they have wood and metal as some of the basic 4 elements instead. And you see the same energy dynamics going in and out as well among indigenous cultures. So again, in Eastern philosophies, you might have yin and yang, but in South Indian indigenous cultures, you might have Tama versus Raja energy, or in other cultures, you might have a demonic versus a angelic energy. As a scientist, I've kind of taken those across the board, and I've created mentally a Cartesian graph of trying to visualize any life form in terms of 2 different vectors. And the first is whether it's moving in the same temporal vector to us. So is it traveling at the same speed and direction through time, or a different one? And also its comparative energy and mass density. So if something is more dense mass-wise than us and less energetic, it's sub-informative. You have less information being processed, less energy, more mass. But if you have less mass and more energy, it's a super informative entity. And so that kind of seems to provide a very similar dynamic if you have yin energy, that seems to be more sub-informative. Yang energy would be super informative. Tama energy would be sub-informative. Raja would be super informative. Celestial, angelic, super informative. Demonic would be sub-informative. So that's kind of the way I think of them now, in terms of, if you use humans, just the human experience as an average central baseline point, you could figure out how a human would compare to any other entity based on its relative mass and energy density, its gravimetric energy per se, and its temporal vector.
Dave?
Yes, we have a question coming from Matt here, who is asking, what do you think about the titanium isotopes mentioned in Gary Nolan and Jacques Vallée's research?
Do you want to take that one, Science Bob?
Well, I find it very interesting. So the things to me that I don't know that are really necessary is the lineage of the isotopes. What is who found them? How did they get them? Which hands did they pass through? What were the exact tests they ran? How and what methodologies they used, and so forth, to arrive at the conclusions. So it's really interesting. But I, as a scientist, familiar with how that science is done in some cases and in some context, I need more details before I'm going to give it an A.
I guess my own response on the question would be, we touched upon it in a Twitter conversation earlier. I would say if it was a human state actor that produced a craft, any isotopic thing could probably be thought of as a trace number instead of a specific, inherently metaphysical quality, as it were. So if you had an ultra secret craft that you didn't want to put any serial numbers on, and you didn't want to have any identification whatsoever, and if it crashed and you needed to somehow figure out if it was yours or someone else's, the way I would do it is I'd encode it with an isotope that was unusual, and then that way I could find that isotope and I'd know it was mine, or I'd know it was someone else's if it didn't have it. But as far as the properties of titanium, like T49, I think that had been asked about, as best I can tell, where it would be really most useful would be creating the skin or the shell of a craft to provide a nice electrostatic coating. It seems a reasonable metal to use as well, especially if you had a UAP that was reported as like white or gray or something like that, because that's going to be roughly the color of such a thing. I think that's like the powder form, at least.
Gentlemen, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. We got 30 minutes left to go here on Spaced Out Radio's Science Bob and Friends with Dr. Bob McGwier, who is sporting a very, very nice pair of denim overalls. Very jealous over that. And our good friend, new friend, Brandon Safford from Night Watch Institute, who could pass for Egon on the Ghostbusters with that fantastic hair. Yep, I said it. I've been waiting all night to say it. And that is a compliment, my friend. Science Bob and Friends returns when we return on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we're clear. We'll go to Steve's question.
Right,
we'll go to Steve's question next, and that's where we'll kick off the last portion here.
This is so much fun. Thank y'all for having me on this.
No, that 1.5 hours, gonna blink and it'll be gone.
I know, right? I feel like we've only been here.
We have people that are reluctant to come on. It's either late or they don't think they have 2.5 hours. Nah. By the time Dave and I get through interacting and asking questions, 2.5 hours is blinked and gone.
I think in the very first conversation Dave and I had over the phone, even I was like, well, I don't know, it's really late and I'm an old man and I got the day job. And I'm like, now I'm really, really glad that I, toughed it out and brewed some coffee.
Good.
Yeah, I think a downside is it's on a Wednesday. But again, we haven't had a problem.
No.
I guess it's not really a downside.
This is fun. This is the kind of thing I used to just sit in coffee shops and do for hours on end talking with other people.
Oh, yes. Yeah, see, the thing that COVID's just harmed me so badly is all of my collaborations are in person. And it's you're hanging out, you're getting to know the people, trying to figure out who's trustworthy and so forth. And that's a part of my upbringing and my experience and all the time I spent working for the government. You really need to figure out who you can trust.
So that actually touches on something interesting that you said earlier, that I had completely forgotten to mention, and that was how the speed of science is changing, and so that might be an interesting thing to delve into later. But
my goodness,
yeah,
we are very close to having a group of technologies that, taken together, science and the number of bits and qubits of information that science and engineering are going to produce is going to increase so rapidly, no one human can keep up even close.
Oh yeah, and I think these types of platforms are going to be the key to that. I had never even considered using social media as a way to try and do scientific institutional research, except for the random comment of my youngest son when I was driving him to school one day. And I was like, so what do you want to do when you grow up? And he's like, I want to be really big on YouTube or Twitter. I was like, why? And he's like, because I want a whole bunch of followers. I want tens of thousands of followers.
My son too.
And I thought, at the time, again, not thinking outside of my own shell, I thought, well, how shallow is that just to want followers for no other reason to have followers?
But it's their content. It's their groups. They want followers.
Well, what I did instead was ask him. I said, why do you want followers? Because instead of just shutting him down, I asked him why. And he said, because that's that many more people that can help me solve problems and whose problems I can help solve. and it blew my mind.
Good answer.
That was the moment at which I realized things like Twitter and the pin tweets and stuff, they can be scientific collaborations that speed up progress exponentially. Instead of having ivory towers of people who are in silos researching siloed information and having it peer reviewed over the course of years and months by siloed people, instead you can have exactly the right kind of experts you need from all over the world collaborating at the speed of tweets on solving problems. And that gives me all sorts of hope for how science and the community and the phenomena is going to be worked out.
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. I want to say a big thank you tonight to Excalibur, Sinead, Phil, Candy, Nicola, Bob, Linda, and Smithy for the great super chats. Really do appreciate the love and the great support that you give us on Spaced Out Radio. And Excalibur, I'll get to your question here in just a little bit. Reminder, February 26th is a Saturday. Lynn Wallington will be having the Women in Ufology Conference on our YouTube channel. 6 hours of UFO talk, including fighter pilot Alex Dietrich. And if you haven't joined Merle's and my new channel, Canada's Great Unknown, I'm going to go find the link. I'm going to put it in the chat room. I'd love it if you subscribe. Here we go. We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. I want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read up on Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, as well as TikTok, Spaced Out Radio. Final segment of Science Bob and Friends tonight. Dr. Bob McGwier is here along with Night Watch Institute's Brandon Safford, and we are hanging out. We're going to get to your questions as well, gentlemen. We're going to start off with Steve's question here. How do you go about discerning truth from fiction in the UFO subject, Brandon?
That's been something I've really had to contend with lately, because when you witness stuff when you witness, observe, or research and find information on stuff that does not conform with anything that previously fit your notion of reality, you have to ask yourself that question every single time. And so personally, I've set up a system of checks and balances of, does this check with what I personally know to be true? If it doesn't check with what I know to be true, does it check with what I know to be right? If it doesn't check with what I know to be right, then I listen and I observe and I record and I analyze. And if I can't come up with a solid answer on that, then I go back and try and do more research. If I come up with an answer for it, I see if it checks with what I know, and I wash, rinse, repeat.
Very cool. Uncle Dale down in Texas, who's an amazing power stash, says, get these men some facial hair. I agree, Uncle Dale. I totally agree. Terrible that they bring out the blades. I know your pain. Let's get to another question here. This one comes from Excalibur. Do you think if more academics had initiatory experiences, then they would be more open to studying the phenomena? If so, could it be as simple as having them stay with experiencers as a program?
I'm going to answer the first question as yes.
I think it would vary from person to person. honestly, even among non-scientists, scientists and non-scientists, you're going to have people who just aren't ready to confront the kind of problems that it poses to reality, especially if you have a very humanocentric view of how the world's supposed to operate. If you think that humans are the end-all, be-all, top of the food chain, if you think that we have perfectly secure airspace, if you think we're that we have a firm grasp on what reality is and is not, then experiencing might open your eyes and it might scare you away. Alternately, on the part of the second question, if someone doesn't believe and you have someone who does believe, it's going to take a bridge between them unless the two of them already believe to some extent or don't believe to some extent. You've got to have some sort of a Venn diagram of context between them, and that can usually be found.
So I just want to point out that Excalibur's first question was quantity. If 100 people had experiences and none of them believed before, would a bunch of them begin to believe after they've had the experiences? And the answer is a simple yes, because they're going to trust their own senses.
I agree, and that I've observed that same thing on at least on the Twitters, but also otherwise, that people who were like myself, even very skeptical previously, become way more open-minded the first experience and every progressive experience thereafter.
I want to ask both you guys something because I want to expand on this question. A couple weeks ago, Jim Semivan, one of the co-founders of the To the Stars Academy, and who has been highly influential on the weird desk of many alphabet agencies, came out publicly and told the story we already knew, many of us, that he's an experiencer. Him and his wife were taken and saw beings, gray beings, inside their bedroom. Okay, long story short, when you get somebody of Jim Semivan's reputation, where he may not be the biggest name publicly, but he is a massive name within the alphabet agencies, how does this change the game moving forward, Science Bob?
So I can just tell you that my personal experience is I knew lots of people in the intelligence community, because I've had a broad reach, worked all over it, and so forth. And as it became that I had become a believer and stuff started coming out, I personally witnessed people changing their mind. And I'm talking about people that once a month or so go to the White House and deal with stuff at the White House. All of a sudden they were going, I thought you were crazy, but I know now you're not. And so that's just a sea change. And now, look, if President Biden did not want the National Defense Authorization Act to have the Gillibrand Amendment, it never would have seen the light of day. So that amendment to the NDAA had broad support in the intelligence community, in the military community, in the Homeland Security community, in the criminal justice community, and in the White House and the National Security Council, and even amongst some of our allies, or it never would have made it. Because what's in the NDAA and the way we spend our budget affects all of our allies. So I'll just tell you, this got broad support now if you understand how all of this stuff works.
Okay, but how does that change the outlook with somebody of Jim Semivan's accountability and credibility coming out as an experiencer now? Because for so long, for the first 4 years of the To the Stars Academy's history, we weren't allowed to talk ET contact. We weren't allowed to talk aliens. They did a great job at segregating the entire topic, which I think caused a lot of unnecessary division within the UFO community. and now he comes out as
Yeah,
an experience.
I was going to tell you, they didn't care about the UFO community. They cared about the U.S. government saying it was real and funding activities and so forth. People that are in the UFO community aren't going to impact that in any significant way. What they wanted was congressional hearing. Look, Chris Mellon got on Twitter and said, "Hey, out loud, I think these Tic Tacs were ET. Now I don't know that. I don't have evidence to prove it, but I believe it." So I mean, just things have changed dramatically.
Brandon
and Simivan is contributory to that.
Brandon, your thoughts?
I'm pretty much in agreement. One of the things I really wish that more of the UFO community understood is that nothing happens without a serial number. Now, you could name this, you could call the serial number whatever you want, an invoice number, a billing number, an RFP, whatever. But if you don't have a bill code to bill it to, it doesn't happen. There's not a person there to execute the action. There's not resources for them to execute that action on. And there's not materials getting shipped or anywhere to do anything with. And those serial numbers don't get created unless you have a project that calls for the necessity of whatever those serial numbers are going to reference in terms of their billing. And you're not going to have a project unless there's an act of Congress or, budgeting within the military that allocates beans and bullets towards that. Now, in the military context, that is almost always going to apply towards killing or defense context or threat assessment. But in the civilian community, you can operate in a much more diplomatic context, a more scientific, exploratory curiosity context. So if the UFO community wants to know more about what is going on with UFOs themselves, they need to pursue it through civilian avenues unless there's a war going place. Now, if they want to know about what's going on in terms of it with the military, then they need to look at the places like the OI message. But if they want civilian stuff and they're looking for, like the American version of it, I guess it's going to be ASRO. But there's other institutions around the world that have been looking into it for a long time. I know Italy has one that's been going on for 20 some odd years now. Mexico's also the Senapro. Mexico's tied it in with their Health and Human Services thing for monitoring with that. I think Chile even has a museum now. Was that you actually who posted the link to the museum science, Bob?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was some time ago, but yeah.
That is the coolest looking thing. That is a good reason to go visit that. Anyway, I'm sorry. I think I might have rambled on that answer there.
No, I think
that's all right. We ramble here.
Go ahead, Bob.
No. I'm good. You're doing great. I'm sure there are other questions.
Yeah, we got one coming up here from Jonathan Davies. How many years will we have to wait before acceptance of the topic in the mainstream will turn into a new religion? This worries me.
Do you want that one?
He's asking a quantity question, and I just don't have any really good way to assess it. So it depends on how the phenomena behaves. That's what I think. And so I don't know the answer because we haven't seen enough behavior.
I think the first official litmus test of if and when it will happen will be whenever the report gets released to the public by October or September, whenever it is that it's supposed to be due. I have a feeling it'll probably be an 11th hour thing that comes out. And if anything is going to cause people to completely freak out, it would be that. But honestly, so far, all the signs point to the only people who really seem concerned about how the public is going to react to this are the people whose job it is to figure out that the public is going to react badly to it. The public themselves seems to be pretty okay with it. NASA brought in 20 different religious authorities and conducted quite a thorough study to see, what would the effect be of disclosure upon the civilian population. And in general, they're like, it's if it turns out that God's, an alien, he's an alien, or she, or whatever. They're willing to roll with the times these days. The days of witch burnings and things like that are hopefully largely coming to a close. Now, if the UAP or if the phenomena suddenly rises up and we see, Ragnarok happening and Fenris coming out and eating the moon, or the Arcturian or whatever you want to call it coming down, oh yeah, people are probably going to drop to their knees and worship aliens in a heartbeat. I mean, they're aliens. What are you going to do?
Well,
So there's a lot of people. There are a lot of people that care about what the Vatican thinks and believe the Vatican has lots of inside knowledge. And there are a lot of people that are worried about the impact on religion. Well, the Roman Catholic Church is the vast majority of Christians. And they're conducting conferences on should we save the UFO people when they land. I mean, the Vatican scientists from the observatory are participating in all these interactions and conferences. I just don't think this is going to be that big a deal. Go ahead, Dave.
I disagree with both of you. I completely do. And I'll tell you why. We don't know how it's going to affect the economics. We have zero clue on how it's going to affect the military-industrial complex, the religious side of things, with 4.5 billion people on this planet still praying to one of the 5,000-plus deities on here. They have no idea about the intent. And they are all taught, the majority of them, of the mainstream religions, that anything coming from the sky is evil. It is demonic, and we got to be prepared for battle and survival against the foreign entities of Beelzebub, shall we say. All right? Doesn't matter whether it's Islamic, doesn't matter whether it's Christianity or anything like that. Plus, you have right now a very paranoid society that thinks the governments around the world are coming to get your guns, that they're coming to take over, that they're coming to do all of this heinous action towards you. And, I don't see it happening. I think there is way too much panic. There is way too much fear in people now, and people are going to do what they can to survive. Now, I don't talk a lot of COVID on this show, all right, but I will say this. With COVID, we have seen literally the worst of humanity that I have ever seen in my life. The worst. People stealing food and diapers and milk away from single moms and single dads and the elderly. And we have seen people shun their neighbors. We have seen people rat out their friends and their family. There are families in North America and around the world now that cannot even get together for a birthday dinner for grandma because of their vitriol towards their stance on COVID. We have seen the worst of humanity. I'm not trying to paint a negative picture here, but I think if you throw aliens into the mix, unless you've had an experience and you are prepared for it, I don't think anybody in this world knows what the hell they're going to do if all of a sudden John and Bob and Diane and Phyllis Gray, alien, come down and say, we're here, we're not leaving, and by the way, come with us. We have something for you. They're not ready. Not ready whatsoever.
I think that's a fair possibility. I mean, if you think about it, one of the recurring narratives of the main five to try and explain the UAP phenomenon is that of a recurring devastating apocalyptic war. You can observe that in the Mahabharata, and even alluded to in the Bhagavad Gita and in various indigenous texts all over in ancient texts all over of these things. So it's entirely possible that this could have happened over and over and over again in the past. And so perhaps each time it happens, it's a test to see how we're going to react. And maybe this time we get it right, and maybe next time we don't.
I don't know. I am steadfast that people are ready. You guys might be ready because you look at all the scientific benefits that you're going to get. I think you guys are looking at it from a completely different angle that I could never understand because I don't understand science. I know on-off buttons. I know how to turn a key to turn a vehicle on. I know how to use the button to move my seat to where it's comfortable. I know how to put my mute button on this microphone every now and again. That's what I know. The majority of the planet is like me or less knowledgeable. And I'm not very knowledgeable when it comes to tech. Right? So I can see where you guys are geeked out about this. Completely can. Right? And I can respect and admire that. But if you take someone, okay, that has never had an experience, and you put a foreign entity in front of them, and it could be a ghost, it could be a Bigfoot, or it could be an alien themselves, they will panic. Internally, they will panic. And I learned this the hard way, because when I had my experience where I saw the alien in the forest with Samantha Mowat, I thought I was one of those tough guys too. And when I had that experience with Samantha Mowat in the forest, I froze. And I panicked internally. I got that paralysis that people have when they don't understand something. And one of them aliens communicates with Samantha and says, "We're worried about the man's health." Because they already knew that if I would have went down there and met them with Samantha, I'd have had a heart attack. That's the reality. And that's why I'm steadfast against the majority of people saying they're ready when they're not.
Well, if I might offer an alternate scenario, you mentioned in driving your car, for instance, you might not necessarily know all the various bits and bobs that make it work and the forces that make it so. And yet, when you drive the car, you can tell inwardly if something's wrong with the car because it's not vibrating at the normal rate. You might have an odd shimmy in it or something, or you might hear an odd sound, or if it's running just right and you hit that perfect flow, or that certain thrill you get when going down a hill or something. You don't necessarily have to understand the mechanics behind it, but you can understand the feeling of it and to appreciate the sensations of it. I think that's kind of how the non-scientific community can bridge the gap.
Well, you know what? It's going to be a debatable issue until it happens. We got 2.5 minutes left, gentlemen.
Aw.
I know. It flew on by. It really did. Brandon, do us a favor. Tell everybody where they can find you, your information, and a little bit more about Night Watch Institute.
Sure. Well, let's see. I'll lead with the Patreon. I just set up a brand new Patreon. I apologize if I did it wrong, but it's patreon.com/node3, NODE 3. If you want to go to the website, it's node3.org. If you want to email me, it's nightwatchinstitute@gmail.com. And usually I hang out on the Twitters whenever I'm collaborating with people publicly, and if I'm collaborating with them privately, well, then you'll know how we get in touch. As far as did I miss anything there?
I don't think so.
Oh, great.
I don't think so. Science Bob, always a pleasure to have you here. Tell everybody how they can reach you.
It's great. And my last word is, you already know that if they come and offer me a ride, I'm going to take a ride.
Oh, yeah.
Send a postcard.
Yeah, you can't forget
Or-
the postcard.
Or a SOFON. You could send a SOFON if you ever have read The Three Body Problem.
At this point, At this point, gentlemen, it's NFTs. We could make millions off the NFTs of Science Bob getting his whiskers pulled by the aliens on the triangle spaceship. That's all I'm saying.
Holy cow.
I'm totally sticking with that. NFTs, Science Bob, that's where we're making it. Don't worry about the satellites anymore.
Non-fungible tokens saying good night.
Don't worry about the satellites anymore, Science Bob. We got NFTs to create. That we do. Brandon Safford, thank you so much for joining us on Spaced Out Radio. You were wonderful for Science Bob and friends, and I just want to say you can come back on this show at any time. We really, really enjoyed your opinion tonight.
I would love to. This was so much fun.
Absolutely. And Science Bob, as always, my friend, much love, and we'll talk again very, very soon. Science Bob and Friends happens the second week of every month here on Spaced Out Radio, where we get to the who, what, where, when, why, and sometimes I will sneak in a little woo for Science Bob and our guests. Coming up next, we head to the swamp. Swamp Dweller's about to join us on Spaced Out Radio. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Great show, guys. Great show.
Thank you.
That was fun.
Yeah, we did good.
We did.
Yeah, and 2 hours is pretty short.
It flew by. Y'all are wonderful hosts. It didn't even feel like a show. It felt more like us just hanging out in a room shooting the breeze.
Well,
yeah, that's the ambiance we want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? Spread the love, spread the word around the SCU that we're a good show to hang out with.
Yeah, will do. Will do. I appreciate it. It was very respectful. It was professional. It was fun and insightful. Loved it.
And if you do get that position at SCU,
it's not a place where you're going to get jumped, because that's not me and it's not Dave.
Right.
And if you get that position at SCU, let's talk.
Okay. Yeah,
all right.
I would love to.
All right.
I'm hoping I do, because I love being able to connect dots for people.
All right. Good one. Science Bob, take care. Brandon will take care, and we'll be right back here, guys. See you guys. All right. Brandon Safford, Science Bob. That was a good show, guys. Ended with a little passion. A little sprinkle of passion. I'll be right back, guys. I'm going to just quickly hit the loo. I'll be right back. That was a great show. Great show. Hey, want to say a big thank you to Science Bob and Brandon Safford for coming on into the show tonight. And a big thank you to Simon Wales, Steve, Excalibur, Sinead, Phil, Candy, Nicola, Bob, Linda, and Smithy for the amazing super chats tonight. And I really do appreciate the love. Really do appreciate the love. And, of course, Lynn Wallington will be having her big-time Women in Ufology 6-hour marathon here on Spaced Out Radio, Saturday, February 6th, starting at, I believe, 3 p.m. Pacific, maybe 2 p.m., I'm not sure. We'll figure it out. Huge lineup of awesomeness. So make sure you check that on out. And what else can I tell you? We are approximately 9 people away from 300 for Canada's Great Unknown, my new YouTube channel with my buddy Merle. Could you do me a favor? Let's get to 300. I need 9 more. I'm putting the link in the chat room right now. I know most of you have already subscribed to it, but if you like really spooky stories that we're finding out and people are emailing us, it would be great to have you guys come on out, hit that subscribe button. It's moving real fast. Let's see if we can hit 300 by the end of the night, if you don't mind. Canada's Great Unknown, and I would appreciate it. Don't forget, Las Vegas. I ate chili for dinner, so I'm all gassy right now in this area. Soon to be the other area, but right now it's right here. Thank you to all the veterans who tuned us on in. We really appreciate it. Vegas, April 22nd and 24th. Here we go.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Excuse me. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Paboosh. Paboosh is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Let's head over to the swamp, where our main man, Swamp Dweller, comes on in, tells us a spooky story or two each and every night, and I know you love it. I love it too, so let's get right to it. Let's go to the swamp.
Hi, Spaced Out Radio listeners. This is Swamp Dweller. It's time for your nightly dose of spookiness on the show. If you have an interesting encounter or a spooky story that you would like to share, be sure to submit them in at swampdweller.net. You can also find our YouTube channel at youtube.com/swampdwellerreads. Now, let's chill out, relax, and together, let's enter the swamp. My mom worked quite a few jobs, and with every position she made friends. They always had their paranormal stories, everything from seeing Bigfoot in the Zuni Mountains in New Mexico to seeing a ghost while driving home in the dead of night. For this story, my mom worked for a hotel with a restaurant inside, where she had a position as a hostess. One day, a close friend came back to work after taking her vacation. Asking her how her trip was to Utah, her friend told her that they had fun but encountered something terrifying while on the way back. She explained they were coming home, and they had left late to make their trip home through the night. They were on the border of Utah and New Mexico, at a place so-called the Skinwalker Alley. This area was well known for having some of the most extreme encounters with these entities, allegedly anyway. They had been driving for quite some time. It was herself, her husband, and youngest son. Their son had fallen asleep for quite a few miles, and she wanted to stay up to keep her husband company while he drove. It was somewhere around 3 a.m. when they reached the border. She wasn't paying any attention to what was going on outside. While she and her husband were in the middle of their conversation, her husband said out loud, "What the heck is that?" Turning her attention to the corner of the road, they approached a giant hill when she noticed something moving quickly down the mountain. Again, saying out loud, "What the hell is that?" her husband promptly decided to step on the gas and try to get ahead of whatever this thing was that was quickly coming down the mountain. As they approached the hill, they noticed it was a deer, but this was no ordinary deer. As they looked closer, they saw something that just was not right. It did not stand on all fours, but was running on 2 legs. As they quickly drove past it, it promptly began following them, jumping from one side of the road to the other. They then noticed that it was almost like a man, and what he had on appeared to be a deer head. Desperately trying to outrun this creature, it kept up with them for quite a few miles, until in the distance they saw an oncoming car looking to the passenger side. They saw it run off into the trees. Freaking out, they tried to keep their cool. They did not want to wake up their son. They kept staring ahead. A few more miles down the road they had driven past a herd of deer, thinking, what if this thing came out of the dark and tried something? But nothing ever did. A week after, she told my mom of the encounter. They went to see the shaman, and he explained that it was a skinwalker they had come across. He explained that the skinwalker wasn't there for them, but wanted to scare somebody. It just so happened that they were there at the wrong time. Her friend, wanting to be sure, asked him again if they were safe. He said that after their encounter, if they had come across any deer, which she said yes, giving her the reassurance that if they had come across the deer, it meant that they were safe from the skinwalker. After this terrifying encounter, they made themselves promise that they would never drive through the night in Skinwalker Alley. This happened the other night, on December 9th. We live on 2 acres in north-central New Mexico. I live in an unincorporated area, a lot of open fields, and it gets very dark at night. My 5-year-old Pyrenees dog, a giant dog, must be taken out to play or do his business. He will escape from the yard if no one is with him. Back to the other night. I took him out just before bed. Heavy breathing and some sort of snarling noises to my left. I was beginning to feel very uneasy at this point. I called for my dog. Even though he is a huge dog, he fears his own shadow. He comes running up to the porch, whining and wanting to go inside. We rushed in, I locked the door and turned off the porch light. I told my husband what I heard. He said it's probably just the neighbor's dog. We went to bed, and the dog sleeps with us in our room as well. My side of the bed is inches away from the window. As my husband falls asleep, I heard a tap on the window. I lay there for a few seconds, thinking, did I actually hear that? Then I hear my voice calling my dog and telling him to come on. My husband says, "Why are you calling the dog? He's right here." I noted that the voice was coming from outside. Then we hear it again. He is looking at me with big eyes. What the hell is that? I tell him to be quiet by shushing him. These taps begin to turn into more aggressive bangs, and then my voice becomes more distorted. I have heard people talk about how it always sounds like someone they knew, but distorted. Never could I understand it until now. I mouthed the word "skinwalker" to my husband, and he goes pale. I text my daughter-in-law. She is Navajo and from a medicine man and woman family, and is spending time out on the reservation with her mom currently. I text her and say I think a skinwalker is outside. I explain the situation. She calls and tells me to put the phone on speaker and put it up by the window. I could hear her and her mom do a Navajo prayer as I did this. As I listened to their words, the uneasy feelings went away. We did not hear anything else after that. Last night, when I took him out, nothing happened. It is getting that time of night again, though, so wish me luck.
Oh. Gotta love the Swamp Dweller who comes on in. Make sure you go check out his YouTube channel. Hit subscribe. Make that Swamp Dweller Reads on YouTube. YouTube.com/Swamp Dweller Reads. And we gotta move on, though. Thank you, Mr. Swamp Dweller, for that amazing, amazing story. We'll have another one tomorrow night. But it is time once again for the fedora-wearing John Hudson and the UFO Report. How you doing there, John Hudson? As we always love it when he comes on in, talk about all the weird, strange, and wacky stuff that is going on in the world. And I'll tell you, this is a very, very good time to sit back, relax, and just chase the woo. John, what's happening, my friend?
Well, things are certainly getting very interesting. The first thing I wanted to cover is the fact that there's this new video out of this very funny-looking cloud video. But what I don't want to focus on is purely the cloud video, although I do recommend people actually watch it because I do think it's curious. But the aspect of what I want to focus on is the misconception of what people actually see and what people think people actually see. Because I, for one, can tell you that when I first started researching this, and I would get jealous over the fact that, other people had seen something and I hadn't, in most cases, I would have still been disappointed if I had seen what they had seen. Because what I want to see is I want to see this beautiful, shiny, high-definition thing that, I can see, details on, right? And that's not what a lot of people see. In this case, it was a cloud. Now, it was a very odd cloud. It was a cloud that if you sped it up, you could actually see that the cloud itself had planes of existence. It actually had orientation to it in a way. And so now it could have been an art project. Honestly, that could be a very advanced form of active camouflage that the U.S. military has done. It could be something else. I don't know. But the point is that usually when I'm looking up at the sky, as a kid, I was always looking for a UFO, right? But the truth of the matter is that many sightings are stars, right? Very, very bizarrely behaving stars, right? Or they start out as behaving stars, or they're orbs, or they're who's that one woman that she gets like God, man, they look like luminescent jellyfish things in the sky. I mean, people see some weird wackadoodle stuff, right? But the point is that if you were looking into the sky and you actually want to see something that strikes your curiosity, don't always just look for the plain and simple movie version. Look for anything out of the ordinary, because some of the videos have been coming out lately. If you weren't studying that film, because in some cases what you'll see is just 3 stars, and the 3 stars start moving, and they're moving in alignment. You don't see anything else. You just see 3 stars that seem to be, and you suddenly start realizing those 3 stars form a triangle, and you see nothing else. Now, once again, that could be a special effect, but the point is that that's not what I would have been looking for a couple of years ago, right? So all I'm saying is that the cloud video is a good thing to watch, but I think it's also a good opportunity for all of us to kind of talk about the fact that we're not talking about the sports model anymore, right? Are there some of those? Please, I hope so. I really do. But let's face it, right? What most people see is either, completely different shaped objects, right? Or in some cases, they don't see a vehicle. They only see one of the occupants.
I saw that video because you sent it to me. Mm-hmm. And watching this cloud morph into so many different shapes, you know what? There was no pixelation. It didn't look like it was some sort of CGI. Because I'm always suspicious of those type of things. You know what I'm saying, John? Usually, usually within the first 30 seconds, you can look at this and say, "Well, this is BS. This is garbage."
Most of us get an instinct for it. Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I look for is I look for things that are either either unique, or they're unusual enough that I know only a subset of people know those details, and to see if those details are included, because those details can be very, very, very telling, right? There's certain aspects that become very kind of I wouldn't say normal, but you get correlations, I should say.
Very true. Very, very true. And I mean, I don't know about you. I mean, our eyes and our brain are trained to see things in clouds. We can recognize it. That's why we can look at clouds and say, okay, that one looks like a person. That one looks like a dinosaur. That one looks like a shark. Okay, because our brain is trying to go through its database and think, what does this look like?
Pattern matching. You're pattern matching
Absolutely.
as fast as you can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the thing that interests me about this cloud is at one point it looks like it actually morphs into a human head with a face, and then it goes into like a rectangle, and then it goes into a number of different phases that it transforms into. When you look at something like that, I mean, I am just dumbfounded by this one.
But see, the thing is that if you had an object, and you had that object completely covered in screens that project, right, and you have the software to account for the angle issues that you would run into with a rotating object, having that vehicle project a hyper-realistic cloud where the rest of the object is see-through. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering how hard it would be to recreate what we saw if I had an unlimited budget and a bunch of DARPA people behind me. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm just wondering, like, because I know I shouldn't say that. I have more knowledge than I should about how far along active camouflage is in the military, right? Active camouflage is in play. However, it has a lot of challenges with it, and it's not, to my knowledge, it's not to the level that was, right? Because see, to me, I would be honestly just as excited to find out this was Lockheed as I would to find out it was Alpha Centauri, right? I mean, it's like, to me, that was just super crazy cool technology, right? And the thing is that, to our earlier point, I find that when people replicate things, they typically replicate common things that you've seen before that you could compare them to and say that looks real. So when someone shows a video that is of something that is really, really rare or unique, I think it invalidates some of the claim of a fake, because what are they faking? They're not trying to fake something that you've already seen before, right? So it's a different kind of analysis.
John, is there any way possible that this object,
I love looking at it,
whatever it is,
so awesome?
Do you think that, for a lot of people who look at this, they'll say, look, that looks like a bunch of spread out cotton, and cotton is very, very light and can be blown in the wind, or maybe it's a plastic bag, a large plastic bag, like a bag that would go onto a mattress or something along those lines. Is this kind of what we're playing with here?
Well, if you only saw this much of the video, then you might be able to argue that. But what you're looking at now is just this 20-second clip that I did that speeds up. The real video is like a minute and I think 15 seconds long, and you follow it all the way down, and eventually it goes behind some buildings, and you can see it. Look, to me, it looks okay. Let me put it this way. To me, it looks like a material that has memory. Okay? And what I mean by that is it's a material that has a sense of its form and tries to maintain that to a degree. And that indicates something. Now, look, there are fluids that will do that, right? I mean, there are. I assume there are gases too. But the thing is that thing is trying to keep itself contiguous. And when it turns, you can see it has a top and a bottom, and it has sides, and it shouldn't. It's a cloud, right? So,
well, the interesting point for me is the almost looking like translucent orbs that are inside of it.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing that I couldn't see as well from the video. But if you listen to the original video, what he's talking about is that's actually the part he is the most enthralled with. He is not, the guy filming it is not most enthralled with the cloud. What he's most enthralled with is these multicolored lights that he says are appearing inside the cloud. These pinpricks of light that keep turning off and turning on. I saw a glint of that, but I couldn't see that really well.
I don't know.
And what was interesting was after I posted this, because I mean the thing was that I said when I posted this, I did exactly what everyone shouldn't do. I took a video that I'd never seen before, that I'd done no research on, that I had no chain of authority on, that I had knew nearly nothing about, and just dumped it on the Twitter and said here, right? And that's the last thing you want to do. So please don't ever repeat what I just did. But the cool thing was everyone actually reacted quite well to it, and a couple people actually pointed out almost identical videos that were filmed by other people at other times over a 2-year period, including Jason Turner that posted one that he took a year ago.
Well, we should give thanks to at UAP TikTok on TikTok for this video.
Yes. I apologize. Yes. I apologize. Just in the very beginning. Thank you, Dave, for making that point.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
And so if you go on, if you're wondering in Radioland where you could see this video we're talking about, go on TikTok and then type in at UAP TikTok, and you'll be able to see the link in the video, which is about a minute and 25 seconds long. So far, it's had hundreds of thousands of views, 91,000 plus likes on it, and almost 4,000 comments on what this is. I think it's strange.
Yeah. It is. It's super strange. And look, the thing is that if it is an art project, holy shit, that guy deserves all the press he's going to get, right? I mean, this would be an amazing piece of work if this was done by an artist, right? But I mean, my guess is there's something real to this. I just don't know if it's going to be a government program or something else.
I don't know. Is it some sort of weather modification? We don't know.
Well, no. Because my look, it's actually not hard to find data on weather modification, and weather modification is it's not an exact science, but there is a science to it, and that's not an outcome, right? I mean, because the thing is, you have to ask yourself, why would you want to build that? Right? Like, what purpose does it serve? It's not delivering DoorDash, right? So what's it doing?
We don't have that in my town.
Oh, sorry. Food delivery to your house.
Don't have that.
Wow. No. So it's not. So it is truly strange. But like I said, I also wanted to kind of use this as a really good conversation piece to get everyone talking about the fact that what a lot of people see today is not silver discs. It's anything out of the ordinary that doesn't look natural. And so when you're looking to the sky, look for things that look like they're off. Don't just look for Hollywood.
Very true. John, we've got about a minute to go here before we have to go to break here at the top of the hour here, or bottom of the hour here on Spaced Out Radio. And I got to tell you, it wouldn't surprise me if this came out as some sort of video type hoax or trick. It really wouldn't surprise me. But, I mean, either CGI is getting that good where you can't tell. Maybe it's a natural phenomena, but maybe it's not. We got 40 seconds.
Well, I mean, the thing is that when you get down to it, it's a hell of a fun thing to look at, right? And let's face it, one of the biggest problems we have in this industry is we really suck at failing things out, right? And there are still videos I have from 2-3 years ago that I have an inkling have some realness to them, but I can't get anyone to make a determination on them.
All right. When we come back with the fedora-wearing John Hudson, university degrees on UFOs? Is this possible? Are universities going to start teaching UFO classes? This
Think
would
of
be
the fraternities.
This is going to be great. We're going to continue on. I want my bachelor's, my master's, and my doctorate in woo. We're going to find out how you do that when we return on the Unbiased UFO Report with the fedora-wearing John Hudson right after this. Hi, sweet Donnie D. Devin, how are
Then we
you?
can call you Dr. Wu, Dave. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Well, Apollo believes it's CGI.
Oh, I mean, look, it totally could be. I mean, it absolutely, totally could be. The thing is that, yeah, I don't know. Just, like I said, if it is CGI, I'd like to know, like what the goal was, right? Because like if I was going to make a fake UFO video, I wouldn't have done that because there's not much of that out there, right? It's like, that's a pretty odd thing, So it's like, if you're trying to fake a UFO, then, so maybe they were trying to just demonstrate some skill that they have, for sure. And that may be it. Well, no, with the right sort of equipment and absolutely. No, I mean, look, let's face it. I mean, anyone that says that you can't, do something in special effects just needs to go watch a movie. We can do anything with enough money. We can do anything. Will it look good from every angle? Probably not, but it depends. The active camouflage is getting damn good.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Especially because now we have powered versions and non-powered versions.
Love it. Love it. Trying to... Merle has a video on his TikTok that has been... Where is it here? It's got this thing is just taken off. It has literally over 205,000 views.
Merle's thing?
Yeah. This is
wow.
This is a road.
Oh, Merle.
This is on a road in my old hometown where I grew up. I've driven this road, and it is considered an extremely haunted road. So we're going to play this for you here for Merle. Merle! Merle! So this road is haunted. Apparently has a lady in a white dress that walks. Now, this is on top of a mountain on, I believe, Sumas Mountain. And
why would you haunt a road?
Oh, we got to do it.
If I ever haunt any place, I'm going to haunt someplace cool. I mean,
and there's a ghost dog that runs on this road too.
Now, see, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All dogs love to run on roads.
Yeah.
It's a nice road too.
Yeah, I know exactly where this is. It's kind of trippy when you know. Oh, geez, John, I give everybody a bad view there.
No, but there's no center line.
No. Well, you got the crack. What do you need? What do you need a center line for when you got the crack?
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah, bodies there.
Okay.
Now, that road used to lead up. See where it says teenagers like to come here and party?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave did that. Dave did that. Never heard the screaming. Yeah. But apparently, up on this mountain here, there used to actually be this mansion that people claimed was a satanic cult's ritual site.
Ooh, that's awesome. Did you go?
No, it scared me too much.
Aww.
Scared me too much.
Bummer.
Yeah. So, that's Merle, everyone. Merle! 205,000 views.
Why did that video get so many views?
No idea. Just took off. Just took off.
So baffled.
Yeah.
I assumed that he saw something on it. Like,
No.
That's weird.
Totally.
Huh.
Totally weird.
Yeah. That's super odd. I was all excited. I was like, ooh, Merle caught something on video?
Right. Hey, Zeta Connection with Paul Hamden and Cyan. How are you? Welcome.
I was all excited for Merle. Now I feel kind of like he cheated me.
No, he didn't cheat you. Merle doesn't cheat anybody. I think it's
got me all excited. I thought I was going to see like a white lady ghost throwing tennis balls for a ghost dog or something cool, you know?
Uh-huh. Hold on, guys. That's right, Lynn. Paranormal. Very nice. You get your Paranormal t-shirts at our website, spacedoutradio.com. So make sure you go check out our swag there. Here we go. Rounded third, we're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you have missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading Shirky Poo's Newswire, checking out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. For the final time tonight, John Hudson is here with the unbiased UFO report. And we're going to get into a little story here that you could soon go to university and get your bachelor's of woo in UFOs. John, welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, so I hesitated to include this because, you know, like, what can you say about it? But to me, it was just, one, it's funny, but two, it is actually a foreshadowing of sorts. You know, it's rarely Harvard that does something first, right? Someone has to do it first, and so what we were seeing here is this university, and I believe unfortunately the site that it takes you to is in I believe that's German. Yes, so and this is in Germany, but you are actually, for the first time in history, for the topic of unidentified aerial phenomenon. This is not a UFO degree, Dave. This is a UAP degree. Is it previously referred to as UFO? Has been officially recognized as a legitimate object of academic research at a high-profile Western university called the Interdisciplinary Research Center for Extraterrestrial Science, IFEX. It's going to be an institute of the Facility of Mathematics and Computer Science at the JMU. And so this is actually, I mean, what's really cool is if you read the article, and as you'd hope, this isn't a joke. They're taking this really seriously. They're actually really taking a swing at this. And if you've ever developed curriculum before, this is a daunting task. It really is, from many, many, many angles, from the wealth of content to the depth of content to the quality of content to the variation in content to the ordering. I mean, my God, I mean, I just can't even imagine developing curriculum for this. But they're taking it seriously, and assuming that this goes well, and I don't know how you'd publish job statistics in the future. 96% of our students have podcasts. Ta-da! But I mean, it's a really, really good sign, and I'm more than pleased that some university is doing it. Now, what the big hope is that you'll actually get several students graduate, because we did have Dr. Jeffrey Mishlove succeeded in graduating with a PhD in paranormal studies from Berkeley, but that was a one-off. He basically snuck out with that, and they've made him suffer for it ever since. And I don't think they're going to do that again anytime soon. So this will hopefully be systematic, and that will be something that hell, if 5 years from now, 5 people have graduated from that program, that'd be cool.
No, I think it would be cool too. How are they going to get legitimate people to teach this course?
Well, the thing is that that's the funny part about this, Dave. Is it we so much brand this as this esoteric topic, and yes, there are definitely rabbit holes of that you can fall into. But the truth of the matter is that this topic dovetails into almost every other aspect of our lives. And so as a result of that, all you have to do is take someone who's an expert in that area of life and have them study and discuss what impact they think it's going to have on that part of society, right? And that's how you start. And that's how you start basically figuring out what challenges are there that you have to solve. But the truth of the matter is that that part's not that hard, because it touches on every. Let's face it. Depending on what stage you're at, right? But let's take, for example, let's take many years in the future, right? And you might have the possibility of actual visitors, right? Of actual non-escorted visitors, right? Non-escorted visitors, right? Imagine the work that would have to go into training police forces, changing laws to but all the things you'd have to do to make sure that some police officer didn't just pull up and shoot the poor creature because it did the wrong thing. There could be a lot involved in these processes, and so there's quite a lot that you could study to kind of figure out what are the best ways to approach this stuff.
Have they defined how they're going to break down the topics? Year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4?
Well, the thing is that for them to have announced it, I would argue yes. And they make a point that this is not an undergraduate degree. This is advanced studies, and it will be somewhat somewhat independent as far as the research is concerned. But it looks like they're getting many different institutions, including the Max Planck Society, the German Aerospace Center, the Federal Aviation Office of Germany, the Weather Service, to get involved and provide assistance, provide resources, provide individuals and so forth. I've never been to this part of Germany, but I have no reason to believe this is anything but an absolute stand-up effort. Especially, I don't know if you've ever spent any time in Germany, Dave, but what a beautiful country. And they a lot of good engineers in that country, and they build things well, and it's nice. Fantastic airport. So I have a lot of hopes for this.
Right. Okay. Well, let's see how this goes for success, because look, this entire field, you've heard me say it before, John. One of the biggest issues is it's very anarchic. The UFO world, the Bigfoot world, the paranormal world, very anarchic. And to be able to actually see a course actually start up on ufology, I'm hesitant, because I don't think that they will capture the proper esoteric nature of the subject, but it is a step forward.
The thing is, Dave, is that I could, and you probably could, and there's probably a lot of people that could. I wouldn't. Don't get me wrong. You'd have to break things up into incredibly small chunks of information. My God, the syllabus would just be insane. But you could do it. You could do it. You could absolutely do it. But I agree with you. That's part of the fear.
That is a big part of the fear. Okay, finally tonight, you were talking about Chris Mellon. Is there a book on his horizon too?
Well, No. That was my joke about his article in the debrief, because it's quite long, and people have been I wouldn't go quite as far as say complaining. I will say commenting on the length of the article, and then I had a couple people express kind of discontent about the fact that people weren't doing a kind of analysis of it, and so I thought it would be really helpful to maybe tonight and a couple of the nights that myself, and you're welcome to do so as well, we pick out a couple things from the article that we think are really, really pertinent to help people digest it better, just because it is a long piece of literature to read, but it's very, very useful and it's very helpful. And I guess my point is that I'm hoping by doing this, I will tease more of you into wanting to read it.
What sticks out for you on the Chris Mellon article?
Well, I mean, it's almost, to be really honest with you, it's almost more of a question of what didn't stick out to me, because I love this article so much. But the thing is that what immediately jumped out to me, and what I wanted to cover just briefly today, in a little more detail, and not in depth but in breadth, is the fact that so he does this very beautiful layout of this article, and he very much lays it out like a you almost argue like a legal argument, where he basically states all of his evidence up close, up front. And so the first thing he goes into is these radar capabilities, and I mentioned some of them before, but I just wanted to cover a touch of them. And to me, like, the rest of the article is really, really good, and there's other parts that I could argue are more important. This section of the article is the part that I'm kind of the most surprised that he was allowed to write. But the point of what that he gets to, I'll get to in a second, and that's really the main point of what I'm getting at. It's not really the details, so I'm just going to cover them briefly. So we have the space fence, which I mentioned before. So the space fence is the one where there's beams that go up from north and south, and we basically monitor objects in orbit. Okay. Then we have the solid state array, which is what I mentioned before. That's the one that looks horizontal, and it looks both directions. And so basically the combination between the two is, in one case it's a softball, and in one case it's a golf ball, I think it is. But basically those are like the size of objects we're able to monitor in incredible detail from an incredible range, right? There's the Global Infrasound Acoustic Monitoring Network. I've mentioned this before. There are 60 stations in 35 countries, and this is all part of the test band tree. And essentially, these are devices all over the world that measure pressure and sound and vibration and other things. And so this was really designed to detect underground nuclear detonations. But it's so hypersensitive that the likelihood that you would have any sort of extraterrestrial vehicle crash and you wouldn't pick it up on this, I don't know. I have a hard time believing that one myself. There is the U.S. Space Surveillance Network, which is distinctly different from the previous mentioned system. This includes sea-based X-band radar and so forth. There's the space-based infrared system. There's the active electronically controlled scanned array radar system. That's the stuff that is tied into the Navy's Aegis system. The FAA has their own system, and then he mentions several other systems that are kind of auxiliary. And so what he's really getting at is the gist of his article, which is that we shouldn't just be like, it would be weird if the Air Force was just taking a low activity role in this whole thing. The fact that they're absent isn't just weird. It is absolutely shocking and deserves a direct answer completely independently on its own. Because if you look at these systems, most of which, if not all of which, are under the control of the Air Force and now the Space Force, this is an organization that, just the infrared satellite network, from that network, we should have data every single time anyone entered our atmosphere. And we should be able to correlate that someday. We should be able to correlate that. If this is what's going on, we should be able to correlate that with abductions. We should be able to actually say, okay, look, this person had this incident in this house, in this region, and in that hemisphere, we saw an object enter in a time frame of, an hour or 6 hours or whatever before that. We should be able to start correlating that kind of information. And we're nowhere near it. And that's irritating.
Mr. John, another fantastic edition of the Unbiased UFO Report. Keep up the great work. We'll talk to you in a couple of nights' time. And I thank you for your amazing efforts in bringing the news to our audience, my friend.
John is kind of boring. It's not a nice thing to say.
Well,
Matthew Kennedy. Why would you say that?
Well, some people just, it's because you're very dark. You don't have enough light on. That's why.
Oh, well.
That's
that makes me boring. Oh.
Well, it's your chin hair. You don't look like Barry Gibb anymore. But let's get to Shirky Poo's news, shall we? All right, let's see what Shirky Poo has up for us tonight. It's not exactly smooth sailing these days in the Dutch city of Rotterdam, where locals are voicing their objection to a plan that would temporarily dismantle a historic bridge to enable the safe passage of a record-breaking yacht reportedly owned by former Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos. In fact, some are already making plans, albeit in jest, for what they will do if the project comes to fruition. They will throw eggs at the yacht. Some 13,000 people are interested, and nearly 4,000 have said they will attend a Facebook event titled Throwing Eggs at Super Yacht Jeff Bezos, which has been shared more than 1,000 times in the week since its creation. Calling all Rotterdammers, take a box of rotten eggs with you and let's throw them en masse at Jeff's super yacht when it sails through the Hef in Rotterdam. Now, this was set up by organizer Pablo Storman, and he says that the protest started as a joke among friends and has quickly gotten way out of hand. The news of De Hef's potential disassembly, however brief, has clearly struck a chord with both locals and international observers. The bridge was built in 1927 as a railway bridge with a midsection that can be lifted to allow ship traffic to pass underneath. It was replaced by a tunnel and decommissioned in 1994, but was saved from demolition by public protest and later declared a national monument. The ship's 3 masts are apparently too high for the bridge's roughly 130-foot clearance. The sailing yacht is commissioned reportedly by billionaire Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, of course. So let's move on here to another story. Humanity at its finest in Indonesia. A wild crocodile that had been wearing a used motorcycle tire as a necklace, well, it's finally been freed. 6 years this croc had been wearing the rubber necklace, but it was finally freed by an Indonesian birdcatcher in a tireless effort that wildlife conservation officials hailed as a milestone. The 14.8-foot crocodile, a female saltwater croc, has become an icon to the people in Palu, the capital city of central Sulawesi. The beast was seen on the city rivers with its tire around its neck, becoming increasingly tighter, running the risk of choking her. Conservation officials were racing to rescue the croc since residents spotted the reptile in 2016, generating sympathy among residents and worldwide. In 2020, Australian crocodile wrangler Matthew Wright and American wildlife biologist Forrest Galante tried and failed to free the reptile. In January, 35-year-old birdcatcher and trader Tili, who recently moved to the city, heard about the famous croc from his neighbors, determined to rescue the reptile after he saw her frequently sunbathing at a nearby estuary. I have experiences and skills in catching animals, not only birds, but farm animals that are released from the cage, Teely said. And I believe that I could rescue the croc with my skills. And that he did, stringing ropes together of various sizes into a trap tied to a tree near the river, and laid chickens, ducks, and birds as bait. After 3 weeks of waiting and several failed attempts, the croc finally fell into the trap on Monday night. With help of 2 friends, Teely pulled the trapped crocodile ashore and sawed through the tire, which was 1.6 feet in diameter. A video circulated showing the rescue, and now Teely is a natural hero. And the crocodile goes back into the river, very, very safe, and more importantly, healthy. We got time for one more. Sheriff's deputies in Georgia were surprised to learn last week that what was reported to be a woman's body found along a hiking trail was actually a life-size doll, complete with accessories. The doll, dubbed Selena, was seen in Hitchiti National Forest, and it was reported to authorities last Thursday, but responding deputies quickly realized it was just a case of littering and not homicide. The victim, now known as Selena, is a little under the weather, but she has been having a nice day and is expected to make a full recovery. The department joked on their Facebook. You know, that could have been a heck of a lot worse. Heck of a lot worse. Let's go right to the thought of the day. Scientifically speaking, what would you like to learn about UFOs in today's thought of the day? Bobby, is faster than light technologically possible? Caroline, who's driving them or in control? Vincent, nothing. UFOs are beyond science, or what we consider measurables with science. Joshua, what powers them and how? Magnus, their method of propulsion. Michael, how to properly study aerial anomalies and associative phenomena in a credible fashion, which results in legitimate answers that are a benefit to our understanding. Tobe, do I have to wear a mask on board? Probably. Ted, FTL drive? Yeah. Jamie, are they piloted by bio creatures, and if so, what are the logistics of their biological needs in travel, such as food, consumption, waste, etc.? Sparkles, how is light created in the craft? Joe, how to destroy them quickly and easily with common household objects. We're going to end it right there. Thank you to everybody playing along in the thought of the day. Thank you to Shirky Poo for the news. John Hudson for the unbiased UFO report. We got to say thank you to Swamp Dweller and to Science Bob and Brandon Safford of Night Watch Institute for Science Bob and Friends tonight. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Facebook, Spreaker, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Adventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
We're watching.
we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yeah, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.